Good morning from WGAO Power 88 Radio live from Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts. You're listening to Midnight Mania Sports with Austin DeCouta, and I'm George Hathaway. Austin, what a great show we have ahead of us right now. But first, let's jump into the top headlines going around in the past week. The first one, a big news coming in the last few days. This happened on Saturday at about 4 p.m. at a local high school. Colin Kaepernick's workout mixtape that he kind of proved to the NFL that he can still, after 3 years, still kind of play in this league. So what are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of different things that happened at this workout. There's a lot of takeaways, George. One of those being Kaepernick had the workout originally scheduled to happen at the Atlanta Falcons Stadium, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome down there, and he decided to move it from there to about a high school about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So while they were originally but 20 facility to have that workout with Kaepernick, he decided to move it because he wanted media to come to that workout, and the NFL hadn't approved the media to be where the Falcons facility was held. So they had to move it to a facility where the media could be, and only 8 teams had scouts that made the trek from the Falcons facility to the high school where Kaepernick worked out. Now, there's some mixed reviews from the workout. There are a couple scouts that had said that he has elite arm talent still, that he's a guy that should be in the NFL today. And there are some reviews that say, he kind of looks like your average quarterback, just throwing the football. Now, my biggest takeaway from this is we saw what Kaepernick did when he was in the league. We've seen what he can do throwing the football still. He can still throw it pretty far. I mean, we saw some of the videos that are floating around social media. And it seems like the reason that he's not in the league is not football related, and it's pretty clear when you see some of the backup quarterbacks, some of the third string quarterbacks that are in the league. But as Stephen A. Smith said, there is a side to this where you're debating whether Kaepernick actually wants to play football again.
Yeah, and it's kind of looking with that kind of stunt he did by changing the time and location, kind of makes the NFL look bad. And I think, and not to get me wrong, I think Kaepernick should be in the league, but I think his end goal is just to make the NFL look foolish and that they are pretty much a joke nowadays. And a lot of people stop kind of watching the NFL like slowly because of many reasons. And I think Kaepernick's just trying to pull a media stunt on the NFL to kind of make them look bad and just kind of prove a statement that he should be in the league and that he's pretty much just trying to get back at the NFL. And it's pretty much all pettiness from both sides, on Roger Goodell's side and on Kaepernick's side. But a main reason why I thought Kaepernick wanted to change the time and location is so that he doesn't get pretty much a biased media from the NFL. So if the NFL is the only team that's there filming it, then they could be posting videos making him look bad or just pretty much making Kaepernick look a way that the NFL wants Kaepernick to look. And Kaepernick, I think he just wants it to be all straight up and authentic, that he doesn't want the NFL to kind of take a role in how he looks. He wants to make himself look like the person that he wants to be. And those videos that we have seen on social media made him look good. But what about those passes that maybe he didn't complete? You want to see both sides of it if you're an NFL scout, because you want to see the passes that he can't make and maybe you guys can improve on during practices or training camp. And I was listening to this one interview, and Kaepernick, or the radio show, said that the Patriots, what if the Patriots picked him up and kind of used him as a stunt, to kind of use him as a mobile quarterback for the defense to practice on? Because the Patriots don't really have a mobile QB. I mean, Brady surely cannot do that. Stidham, we haven't seen his legs, but what if they use Kaepernick as a mobile quarterback to kind of prepare for Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, which I thought was a good idea, but the Patriots were not one of the 8 teams there. They were one of the original 24 teams. But if you're, as a scout for the Patriots, something changes on you, then I don't know. Just like the Patriots, you can't pull anything like that. And regardless, I don't think the Patriots were going to get him in the first place. But I think this is just all a big stunt from both sides, both Goodell and Kaepernick, to kind of make each other look as worse as possible. And it's affecting nobody because really, in the end, I don't think anybody really cares about this in the long run.
Yeah, and there's both sides, I think, are at fault here in ways, George, because the first thing, Kaepernick moved the workout, which is on him as to why only 8 out of the 24 teams showed up to the high school.
Exactly.
You can't expect them to drop everything they had planned and drive an hour and a half.
Not at all.
The NFL is out Kaepernick and informed the teams 3 days before, so you're not really giving them much planning. They gave him an opportunity, which is good, but there's not much planning they gave him or the NFL and NFL teams ahead of time. So both sides have some issues here, but Kaepernick did get an opportunity. Bottom line is he did get to throw in front of scouts. And with the whole video thing, at the Falcons facility, the NFL was going to send Kaepernick's representatives the raw footage that they filmed. But you're right. They might only film certain things, or I understand why Kaepernick wants other people to be able to film that. Completely get that. And I think he's right for that, too, because you've waited 3 years for this opportunity. You should have it covered the way that you want. And I agree with him, because what if the NFL says, oh, you know what, we actually lost our camera footage from that event. It went down, you know what I mean?
Right.
And have nothing, and you have no media there. So I agree with Kaepernick that the media should be able to cover this event, but at the same time, he can't just change it an hour before.
Yeah, no, he can't. That's unfair to all the scouts that are there or were at Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta to move to a high school. You know, that's a big shift. And Hugh Jackson was supposed to be the QB coach for Colin Kaepernick. And he flew down to Atlanta, was on his way to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then he got the call that it's supposed to be changed. So he turned the car around and went right back to the airport and left. Because that's unfair to him. Like, why would you change that right away for everybody? And I don't know if it worked, but now like Kaepernick said, it's the ball's in their court now. It's up to the scouts and up to the owners to decide whether or not Kaepernick plays. And I think this will all blow over in a few days, and then this will resurrect back when or if Kaepernick is on an NFL team.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity. He said some things after the workout that maybe some teams questioned. He said, tell the owners to stop running. But it's going to be interesting to see if they judge it purely off football talent. So it's going to be a great development to see over the next week or so.
Yeah, I agree there. But moving on is we're going to be going to something that's pretty big in college football, is that Tua's injury. Tua's hip injury.
It's like one of those names like Giannis. If you look at the kicker on the Houston Texans, Kyami Fairbairn, his actual first name is like 32 consonants long. So you don't even bother trying to say it. Just Tua. Tua is the quarterback for Alabama.
Yeah, that's a household name.
Yeah, it should be.
Supposed to be the number 1 pick in the NFL, but Tua now has a hip injury. He had hip surgery earlier today. Alabama came out with a report saying that he is going to be fine, and he bumped down to the Patriots in the second round. Now, Tua is a very good quarterback. He played well in Alabama the last few years, but now he's injury prone. Now, does that kind of cause something for his NFL future?
Yeah, I think it's going to change the draft a lot. I mean, teams are going to be very hesitant to pick a guy with a hip injury. We saw he has the same injury as Bo Jackson that has been reported. Tua's is not as serious in terms of the surgery. It was very successful, and he has a good prognosis. He's expected to make a full recovery. With an injury so similar to Bo Jackson's, you have to think that NFL scouts are going to be very hesitant to take a guy, especially with a high pick. But if you're a team like the Bengals and you have the number 1 pick, or at this point they're 0-10, they are projected to have the number 1 pick, you might take a chance.
And what about those teams that have been tanking, though? They have this phrase going around now is tank for Tua. Now, all those teams who have tried to tank for Tua, now he's hurt. Now who do you have? Who are your sights on? And I bet those NFL scouts definitely do have something up their sleeves for backup, but you cannot rely on just one player just because football is a physical of a sport that it is. you can't just rely on one player that you're going to have pick. You have to rely on multiple backups, one or two backups to whoever you are originally going to be drafting for.
Yeah, it's going to be, this year's draft is one of those unique ones where there might not be a clear-cut guy right now. You've seen drafts in the past where you knew Andrew Luck was going to be the number one pick. You knew RG3 was the top pick. You knew Sam Bradford was the number one pick way back then. And, I mean, like, look at Peyton Manning all the way back in the 90s with Ryan Leaf. Those two guys you knew were at the top of their class.
Right.
And a lot of the drafts, even the drafts that aren't as talented, or if that makes sense, or as bolstered with talent in the front end, you knew Myles Garrett was going to be number one by the Browns. And Myles Garrett's had himself an interesting week. But this is a draft where there's not necessarily a number one.
Yeah, and like you said, the last few drafts in this decade have been kind of like all over the place. You don't know who it's going to be. You don't have your one set goal. It could be a QB, but the QBs in the last few drafts, I mean, they have not proved their worth. I mean, look at, up in Cleveland, their luck with quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel, they've been all over the place there, QBs. In college, you never know. I mean, the last good ones are Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. Those are few to name. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has proved his worth as well. But the NFL draft, it's going to be interesting this year to see with injuries and how they're going to play out, and especially those teams that are tanking as well. But sticking with the NFL, Matt Ryan edges himself into the top 10 passing yards of all time with 49,383. So a big milestone for Matt Ryan, a great quarterback out of Boston College. So Austin, I don't know, do you have any thoughts on or anything to say about Matt Ryan?
He's had a good career, put up a lot of numbers, made Julio Jones one of the best receivers of all time. Julio, he's got a ton of talent, but Matt Ryan finds a way to get him the ball and really does a great job of connecting with his receivers. And although this team struggled this year, the couple weeks and are a very interesting team to watch down the stretch to see if they could run the table or something unique or spectacular. I mean, they beat the Saints, and then this week they come in and have a really strong performance, and Matt Ryan continuing to edge himself into the history books.
Yeah, Matt Ryan leading back-to-back wins against two NFC South teams as well, beating the Saints 2 weeks ago, and then this past Sunday beating the Panthers. And you now are wondering a little bit, could the Falcons slowly make their way up into a wild card position? Yes, they are at 3-7 on the season. So you kind of wonder, okay, maybe they could slowly make a way up there, but it might be a little too late for the Falcons if they're going to try to make some playoff hopes in the future.
Yeah, especially with the strong NFC, with the Niners playing so well and the Seahawks playing so well. So one of those teams will be a wild card team, and the other one will win the division. So the Falcons are playing for the wild card with the Saints kind of still holding control of the division.
Definitely. And staying, with and going to the AFC South now, DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston Texans wants a pass interference calls to be changed. Now, earlier on Sunday against the Ravens, there was this game was an absolute blowout to begin with anyways. The Texans only put up 7 against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But there's this one play where DeAndre Hopkins clearly got held, his arm got held, and there was no initial pass interference call. Then the Texans, they threw out the challenge flag. They challenged the pass interference. I mean, it was wide open too. It was going for a touchdown. Not like this would have changed the course of the game, but still. And then the referees go up. They review the play, talk to the people up in New York. They still say that the call stands, that it was an incomplete pass. Now, Austin, with the history that we've had this year with pass interference challenges, there's been maybe 1, 2, or 3 that have actually been overturned. Not a lot have been overturned, and a lot of these calls have stayed no calls. Is this something that Roger Goodell, the NFLPA, and all the other executives, the owners, is this something that they have to really crack down on this year?
They got to figure something out, because you can't send 30 calls to be reviewed in New York by Al Riveron, who is the guy that is now reviewing these calls, And all they do is, my guys are correct. Now, some of these calls, like this DeAndre Hopkins ones, are just blatantly wrong that the refs made on the field. He was clearly interfered with, and it's clearly a pass interference, but for some reason, they're just not changing the calls, and it's more like, nope, my guys called it on the field. We don't like this rule. As a referees organization, we hate this rule. We're just going to stick with the call on the field, and that's that. So they're going to have to change something to make this actually a meaningful rule, because at this point, it's just a joke, and coaches are going to stop bothering, even throwing the challenge flag, because it's not even worth it and it's not going to get overturned. They just kind of assume that.
Yeah, I agree there. And a big reason why this rule was implemented was because of last year's NFC Championship game, where there's a clear pass interference call, but the refs did not call it. And the referees this year said, if it's going to be a pass interference call that's going to be overturned, it has to be clear. But most of the time, it is a clear pass interference call, and they still do nothing about it. And something has to change. I know this rule is implemented this year, and there's always some bugs in it, of course, as new rules always come up each and every year. But these are some big calls. And the first play of the Eagles Patriots game was a 49-yard pass interference call. And was that a pass interference? It did not look like it. I didn't think so. I mean, Gilmore's head was turned and everything on that play. So I don't know. But our last top headline for today is Gronk has some big announcement coming today at 9 a.m. on his Instagram page. A lot of people speculating November 30th is the deadline for Rob Gronkowski to come back to the New England Patriots, which would give him time for the playoffs and a potential 7th Super Bowl run for the Patriots. So, personally, I don't know if it's going to be some promotion for Gronk that he's going to be having for himself, or I don't know if he's... I like to say optimistic about Gronk coming back to the NFL. I'd love to see it happen because the Patriots offense surely needs him, as what they've been playing with the last few weeks. But he could come back as a tight end coach. He could be a part of the organization some way, helping them out. That's what I think. I don't know. Austin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. You never know with Gronk. If there's one guy who is, wild and you have no clue what's going to come out of his mouth, it'd be Gronk. And I genuinely don't have a clue what he's going to announce. Like you said, it could be that he's coming back to be a coach. It could be he's coming back to, get into football shape and hopefully make a run down the playoffs with the Patriots. Or it could be that he's just releasing new products or starting a new organization. Who hope that he's coming back to the Patriots, because after Sunday's game, I think they could definitely use him.
And going into the NFL now, Austin, we're going to be transitioning over there. Monday Night Football just concluded not too long ago. Chiefs-Chargers down in Mexico City. The Kansas City Chiefs won in a very important, I believe, AFC West game, 24-17 over the Chargers. Mahomes, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Not really looking like the Patrick Mahomes we've been seeing. Could be because of that knee injury. Who knows? On the other hand, on the other side of the ball, Phillip Rivers, 352 yards. Seems good. 1 touchdown. All right, not bad. Hold up, 4 interceptions. Kind of looking like the Phillip Rivers that we've been seeing all season long. Not playing well. Rivers threw 3 interceptions and fumbled last week as well. So Phillip Rivers kind of looking like Jameis Winston now in the last few weeks.
Yeah, Rivers has looked like this might be his last NFL season. He has shown no ability to really fit the football into places or control a football. 7 interceptions in the last 2 weeks, and his team has lost back-to-back games against divisional opponents. And when you're throwing this many interceptions and having this many turnovers, you make it impossible for your team to win games because you're putting your defense on the field so much, to only give up 24 points is impressive when you're on the field 4 extra times because Phillip Rivers is throwing interceptions. Right. One of those times, the Chiefs started a drive on the 6-yard line, so they're going to get 3 points pretty much either way. So you take that out, and this is a 17-17 game. I mean, the Chargers defense is solid. They were solid last week, but again, Rivers continues to put them in spots where they just can't succeed.
And if you look at the Chiefs defense, the one Achilles heel in that defense is the run game. They have no way to stop it. So if Phillip Rivers, maybe throws 1-2 interceptions, maybe change it up to the running game. You have Melvin Gordon in the backfield, who's an excellent running back. Maybe a top 5, top 10 in the NFL right now.
I'd say so once he's getting going finally after the holdout.
And why don't they use him to his highest ability against a defense that can't stop the run? And that's the same thing for the Patriots. If you want to beat the Chiefs come January, or even the Ravens, but mostly the Chiefs because they have a really bad run defense, you got to start getting Sony Michel, James White into the mix of things a little bit. And the Chiefs defense, that's a big problem for him. And Patrick Mahomes not playing well right now? Who knows? Do they have a shot of going to the AFC Championship game?
I think they do, but like you said, the Chargers got to give Melvin Gordon the ball more. He had 14 carries tonight, and one of the things is even with all the turnovers that the Chargers had, they still led time of possession, 31 minutes to 28 minutes roughly. So the Chargers possessed the football longer than the Chiefs did, but still were not able to give Melvin Gordon the football at an adequate rate in which he can rack up yardage. Only had 14 carries for 16 big runs, and their offense can flow through Gordon when he's getting going. And if you don't let him get his 20 touches on the ground, I mean, you're kind of selling yourself short. And you got to wonder, out in LA now, is this Phillip Rivers' last season, and is this Anthony Lynn's last season as head coach of the Chargers, as they continue to disappoint and they watch the Raiders actually soar to second place in the division and one game out of the division lead?
Yeah, something needs to happen if it's not Rivers, if it's not the head coach. And Rivers is getting banged up a lot, too. That offensive line for him, not looking too good. And talking about an offensive line that hasn't been doing well all season, let's go to the Patriots-Eagles game. Rematch of Super Bowl 53. Patriots rout the Eagles 17-10. Tom Brady was very frustrated in his offense. Newhouse did not perform well at all. Luckily for the Patriots, win is coming back against this Dallas defense. Tom Brady, 26 for 47, 216 yards, and 0 touchdowns. Brady said, "I wish we could play better offensively. We have to go do it. I don't think it's about talking about it, it's about doing it and trying to get the best we can out of our offense and seeing if we can be more productive and score more points." So you have to clearly score more points right now. You can't be scoring 17 points this late into the regular season. If you're going to be playing tough teams in the upcoming weeks, Cowboys, Texans,
the
Chiefs.
Texans are a tough team, so are the Chiefs.
And the Cowboys are coming into Foxborough next week. That's going to be a great game to watch. One great offensive powerhouse against one great defensive powerhouse. But
well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that.
My favorite segment of the show. But if you're the Patriots, the run game needs to be established. At this time of the year, James White, Sony Michel were in the groove of things last year. So where are they now? Does that have to do with David Andrews and Wynn being out? It possibly can, but Wynn's going to be coming back next week. Newhouse, thankfully, will be sitting on the sideline. And Brady took some hits yesterday.
He did. He was banged up. He was blindsided. He was hit, knocked down, pressured, and Marshall Newhouse probably should never play another snap for the Patriots. I mean, like you said, the run game for the Patriots this year has been so brutal. Sony Michel had 10 carries for just 33 yards yesterday. James White, 5 carries for just 20 yards yesterday. And at this point last year, you had Michel going for 80 yards a game, getting a touchdown here and there. James White scrimmage a game. And whether it's James Devlin being out or the offensive line being banged up altogether, or Gronkowski not being there to block on the edge. There's a lot of different pieces to this year's team that last year there weren't as many holes. Ben Watson is not as good of a blocker as Gronk, but Ben's a good blocker still as a tight end. But you have a new left tackle. You don't have the 6'7" monster Trent Brown there, and you don't have James Devlin leading the way. You don't have any fullback leading the way at this point. You had Johnson get injured as well. So the Patriots have a lot of different pieces than last year, and it's affecting the run game the most out of everything. I mean, Brady's still able to kind of manage things. We saw early in the year they were scoring a lot of points, but the run game has consistently not been able to get going, even when they were dominating teams the first 4 weeks.
Right, and I think the reason why that they were dominating so well those first 4 weeks was because of the defense. Defense did not look good against the Ravens. Then they came into the bye week, which I think really benefited them. The defense looked really good. 5 sacks on the day, and a lot of breakups as well. Defensively, I thought the Patriots played really well. Yes, they didn't let the Eagles score after the second quarter. So that does say something. They've improved, but still, how are they going to stop Lamar Jackson is a big question.
That's the guy. I mean, this is a big game for the Pats defense because it gives you some sense of legitimacy and allows you to buy in and believe that this defense is legit. They go into Philadelphia and stop a tough Eagles team. I mean, one of the best things I saw this week was Gilmore talking about Zach Ertz, the Eagles tight end, and he actually said, if you go back and watch film, you can see that Zach Ertz, the tight end, cries a lot during games. You can get under his skin, you can rattle him, and that's kind of embarrassing for Ertz. I mean,
it is.
To be crying on a football for skin and make him whine and cry, literally whine and cry during the game.
Gilmore got a lot of criticism, I thought, for that as well. But
I mean, you got to do what you got to do to win a game. And
you do.
If Zach Ertz can't handle it at this point in his life and his career, I mean, he's a 6 or 7 year NFL veteran, and you got to expect some form of trash talking. Like Gilmore said, it's mental. And what it is it's showing that Zach Ertz is not mentally ready to compete in the playoffs this year or help lead his Eagles team.
Yeah, I agree. And a reason why this defense is been doing so well is because of leadership on defense. I think Stephon Gilmore, if it's not a QB who's going to win MVP, it's going to be Stephon Gilmore who has a shot at MVP, if not Defensive Player of the Year, because that Patriots defense needs to get some credit for what they've been doing. They're putting up historic numbers that we talked about in the earlier episodes of the show, and yeah, Nick Bosa for the 49ers has been playing well. TJ Watt as well. But Stephon Gilmore, the McCourty twins, Patrick Chung before he got hurt, Dante Hightower. I mean, those are names that we talk about week in and week out on how well this Patriots defense has been doing. And going back to the Patriots offense, N'Keal Harry played in his first game, 3 catches, 18 yards. Julian Edelman had 83 yards on the day. Ben Watson had 82. And Edelman had the only touchdown for the Patriots. And that doesn't really, I don't know. The Patriots have used Edelman as QB before, but Tom Brady has also thrown a few touchdowns as well. This is the first game where in his career where Tom Brady hasn't been the only guy throwing a touchdown. So this is kind of a new shift for Brady, and maybe why he's been upset because he has been playing well. But I mean, he's putting up 200+ yards, no interceptions, but still, you have to get some points on the board. You can't rely on special teams. And special teams for the Patriots, Nick Folk, 3 for 3. Jake Bailey, the rookie out of Stanford, playing phenomenal. 8 punts, 6 of those were inside the 20. Matthew Slater was down there each and every time. So special teams and the defense have been playing well, but you need all 3 aspects if you want to win more football games against tough teams, and if you want to win the Super Bowl.
Right, the offense is going to have to show up next week against the Cowboys. And George, it's time to think that we can talk about your Dallas Cowboys. So George, how about them Cowboys this week?
Well, Austin, how about them Cowboys?
Well, Dak had a good game. I'll give it to him.
Played phenomenal.
I have doubted Dak since the start of the show.
Don't doubt him.
And this week was a big game for him. Yes, he played the Lions. I know what you might be thinking at home, that the Lions are an easy team to beat.
They have their tough division up in the NFC North.
Yeah,
it's
but not
always,
with
it's always a
not
rough
with
one.
Jeff Driscoll starting at quarterback for Detroit.
But the offense has nothing to do with
Yes, it
the
does.
Lions offense.
The Lions offense has a lot to do with the Cowboys offense, because the Lions offense turns the ball over, doesn't move the football. That puts your defense on the field the entire game. They get fatigued. Trickle effect. I mean, 444 yards.
Don't doubt Dak.
I'm not going to doubt
444 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I just know it's going to happen next Sunday when he comes into New England. And so do you.
This is a different story. We're talking about last week, and
Okay.
we could talk about next week after
Let's hope Dak
rant
can,
about this.
Let's hope Dak can build some legitimacy.
444 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott, 45 yards, 1
He's
touchdown.
actually struggled, though.
1 fumble. Yes.
Last 2 weeks have not been good.
He has not been good
Failed
last 2
to
weeks.
amass 50 yards
Luckily,
last 2
Dak
weeks.
Prescott is putting that offense on his back.
Yeah.
Gallup as well. I mean, 145 yards. Let's talk about this defense. 3 sacks on the day. But going into next week, the number 1 offense in the NFL, arguably playing against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Game of the year, I believe. 444.6 total yards per game the Cowboys have. 312 of those are passing yards. And they're also number 1 in the NFC East. So clearly goes back to my statement, first show, that the Cowboys will be in the NFC Championship game. Austin, the stats do not lie.
They lost to the New York Jets still. This team is still not that good. They just beat a Lions team who isn't that good. They lost to the Vikings, didn't they, George? Remind me what happened in that game. They beat a Giants team that's not that good. The Cowboys cannot beat good football teams, and they will show you just what happens when they come to New England on Sunday, when they play a good defense and Dak gets embarrassed on the road.
We'll see what happens next week, and this will be a big topic next week, Austin. Patriots, Cowboys in Foxborough, and it'll be an interesting game. So, Austin, transitioning over to the MLB, what is going on after the World Series?
Well, Smith, the former Giants closer, signed a 3-year contract with the Atlanta Braves to take their closer role over. That'll be a nice addition out of the bullpen for the Braves to solidify the 9th inning. Ben Cherington, the former Red Sox general manager, has been hired by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Good move by the Pirates to bring in a guy who knows what he's doing, a guy who can help get your team better and leave you with some assets.
That's a good move for the Pirates. I think
so.
The organization is slowly making an upward climb after the decline it's been having.
Yeah, they
in the
really
last
messed
few
up
years.
the Garrett Cole trade and the Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows trade. But now they're going to have a fresh start with Ben Cherington, a fresh start with a new manager, whoever they appoint there. But the biggest news that we've seen since the World Series ended, and I don't believe, George, we talked about this last week at all.
No, I don't think
we talked about
did.
it on the Alex Fuse show a little bit this week, and that is the Astros sign stealing with the camera. So if you're unaware, the Astros just lost to the Nationals in the World Series, and this doesn't really affect this year's World Series, but back in 2017, the regulars the signs that the opposing team's catcher was putting up, and those signs were being relayed to a TV behind the dugout, and there was a guy sitting there who would bang a trash can. Now, anytime he would bang a trash can, that means the catcher put down an off-speed pitch, so the batter for the Houston Astros would know an off-speed pitch is coming. If you heard no noise from the dugout, that would mean fastball. So they were using sign stealing to tip off their batters. Now, we talked a lot about it this week, and I don't obviously it's not okay to use technology to get an advantage, but at the same time, you got to be able to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, or you may know you're getting an off-speed pitch. You might know you're getting a changeup. Okay, where's the changeup going? How can I hit that? And the movement some of the guys put on it still make it tough. And sign stealing has been going on forever. I mean, you have the guy at second base who can see the signs and who can touch his helmet for fastball or touch his nose for curveball, whatever it may be. And when they had, the Red Sox when they had the Apple Watch issue, nothing really happened. So if anything happens out of this, I think it'd be a fine for the organization. And at most, maybe AJ Hinch gets a little bit of a personal fine too, but I really can't see any. And this is only on at-home games as well. The Astros were still good, and they still won a ton of road games too. So it didn't really affect them as much as people are making this seem like. And yes, if you cheat in the MLB, you shouldn't be allowed to, have these accolades, I guess, but they're not going to be taken away. And Barry Bonds' home run record's not taken away. They still acknowledge that he's a home run guy. I mean, he's not in the Hall of Fame or anything, but still, there's a lot of things that are wrong with the MLB, and I don't think any punishment's going to come down on the Astros for this.
I agree.
Just a fine.
Yeah, I think it would be just a fine. Sign stealing's been going on for ages, even before technology. And like you said, there's so many other ways to use kind of sign steal in the MLB without using technology. And I think it's just a lot of Yankees fans that are very upset about this because they could have had a shot at going to the World Series. But at the end of the day, you still have to hit a baseball, regardless if they're stealing your signs or not. So
most people who are upset seem to be Yankees or Dodgers fans who lost. And the Astros, it was never confirmed that they were using cameras in the playoffs. It said that the regular season, and there are mixed reports on the playoffs. And actually, one of the people that we interviewed a couple weeks ago, Ryan Spader, one of the baseball writers, he actually got a text from a baseball player. He didn't say who, but a unanimous source told Ryan that MLB teams are all doing the sign stealing thing. If you if you look into a team's dugout, there's like 12 monitors right there. Yeah, they're on a delay, but if you have somebody sit there and watch those monitors and watch the catcher's signs, after an inning, he can figure out if it's going to be fastball or off speed. Once you know the sign, you can relay it to your first base coach or third base coach, and he can kind of try and peek in if he can, or even whoever's on second base. And sign stealing is going to happen in the MLB. You still have to be able to hit it.
I agree. I don't think it's a problem that will be solved. I think it'll be more of a problem that will be addressed, kind of finding new ways to kind of fix this. But there's no way you can really fix videotaping signs because you'll never know if it's a camera in center field. That could be anybody's. That could be a phone camera. That could be, I mean, they don't bring digital recorders to any sporting event, but people record games all the time, like illegally, and you could say the same thing about that, and it's just a problem that the MLB will have to deal with in the future, and I don't see it happening next year, but I agree. I think there will be a fine to the Astros organization and possibly to a few individual people, but at the end of the day, if you're a batter, you still have to hit the ball regardless of what the pitch is.
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to be one of the things to keep track of this offseason as to what happens with the punishments, or even if this just kind of blows over in a month or so.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to be transitioning over now into the NBA. And Austin, I thought this last year. A lot of people disagreed with me. I even went to Greece and said it to these little kids who looked up to Giannis. And I said Giannis should not have won MVP last year.
He should have.
I thought James Harden should have. The numbers he put up last year, everybody thought nobody could ever do that again. 39 points per game? Well, am I wrong? James Harden should win MVP again this year. Last 7 games, 44 points, 47 points, 39 points, 42 points, 36 points, 44 points, and 49 points again. So, James Harden's consistently putting up, 30 plus a night, 35 plus a night. And right now he's averaging 39.5 in the NBA. Maybe a little under 10 assists, maybe about 7 rebounds a game. So I believe the Houston Rockets are going to be a contender this year. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, a great duo in the NBA. James Harden should easily, if not unanimously, win MVP this year.
Well, I mean, the last game he scored 49 points. He took 41 shots. I mean, that's not good at all.
Right. And
if I threw up 41 shots, some of them would go in.
I agree, but
he shot like 39% from the floor the other night. That's not good. That should be his 3-point percentage. Harden is taking a ridiculous amount of shots. And Yeah, if you're going to take that many shots, that they're going to go in. You think if Kobe took 41 shots, Kobe would be dropping 60 a night.
I agree. I do think
Giannis is doing it efficiently.
Yes, and I think that's the main reason why Giannis won MVP
so
last
too.
year. It's just because of how efficient he was on the floor. But this is a new James Harden this year. He's going to have to learn to adapt to play with Russell Westbrook, Russell Westbrook is potentially the king of triple doubles. So everybody in the offseason was like, these two guys are going to be fighting for the ball. But I think it's been evenly matched out between the two of them. And the reason why the Rockets have been really kind of taking off, no pun intended, in the last 10 games is because of the leadership James Harden has and the aggressiveness that Russell Westbrook brings to the court.
And I think to start the year, Harden was a little hesitant to be taking so many shots, but he kind of realized that he's got to take over and that Westbrook is going to fit in with him just fine. And Westbrook's numbers are down, but they're going to fit together fine.
Yeah, I agree, Austin. And I think in the West, you have the Lakers, you have the Nuggets, the Mavs, Pelicans are somewhere in there when Zion comes back. But then you have the Rockets. Rockets are a team that are kind of slept on a little bit this year because all the hype is around LA right now. And speaking of LA, Lakers and Celtics are both number one in their conference. So, Austin, could we potentially see another Lakers-Celtics NBA Finals?
We could, but it's going to be a grind to get there. The Celtics have been very impressive to start the year. They had a 10-game win streak, which was snapped the last night, George, against the Kings. They come back tonight. They played the Phoenix Suns, and they won. They had a good game tonight to bounce back. And that was a heartbreaking loss out in Sacramento against the Kings, where Marcus Smart took the game-winning floater, but it just hung on the rim and fell off. Tough way to lose, but they come back strong against the Suns, and they continue to prove that they're a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. Now, the Lakers have worked out well with LeBron and Anthony Davis and their little pieces around them, like JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard. That's kind of fit in pretty nicely as well.
Been playing
Quinn
well.
Cook's played well, and Danny Green. So both these teams look legitimate. It's going to be a grind through November into December to see who's actually legitimate and worth making a run to the NBA playoffs and into the Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals.
And with Celtics, without Gordon Hayward, are really making a big statement with the injuries that they've had. Cantor coming back recently, Hayward is out, but the Celtics, you're right, are still proving it. And at the beginning of the year, we kind of gave our picks, and we said the Celtics would be at about a 3 or a 4 seed because of how talented the East was going to be. But the Suns, I mean, they came out of nowhere this year. I mean, yes, DeAndre Ayton is out for 25 games. He's supposed to be back, within the next 3 to 4 weeks, possibly. And the Suns are still playing well without him. Devin Booker's been playing amazing. And the Suns team, it could be a contender as well. I don't think they'll be a finals contender, but they'll be a team that you watch out for in the playoffs come March or April, and even May, where they might be a team that's in the semifinals, maybe game 7 potentially, but I don't think the Suns will make it to the Western Conference Finals due to how stacked the West is this year. The Clippers kind of disappointed me this year. Yes, I know Paul George has had 2 shoulder surgeries in the offseason, but he came back against the Pelicans a few nights ago, but him and Kawhi couldn't do anything together to stop the Pelicans. And the Pelicans, they had a 7-man roster that night with the amount of injuries. Drew Holiday was out. Lonzo Ball was out. Brandon Ingram was out.
That was an embarrassing loss for the Clippers.
It was. And
right now they're playing a tough game against the Thunder as well. That's a 1-point game with 3 minutes to go. This Clippers team is not pulling away or dominating as much as teams may expect them to. Of course, you have Kawhi Leonard not playing tonight's game against the Thunder, but with PG healthy, a lot of teams are expecting, and a lot of fans are expecting, this Clippers team to be really good. And if you look at the top 5 teams in the Western Conference at the moment, you have the Nuggets at 11-3. Nuggets sit in third place at 9-3. The Mavericks at 8-5, and the Clippers at 8-5, and the Jazz at 8-5 as well. So you have 6 teams who are pretty good. Out of all those teams, George, who do you have most likely, which two, to make it to the Western Conference Finals?
I definitely see the Lakers going there in the Western Conference Finals. Then, a team that I think could possibly surprise some people in the Western Conference Finals. I don't think it's going to be the Clippers. I don't think it'll be, an LA Western Conference Finals. I think it'll be more of probably a Nuggets. I'd like to see the Nuggets in there. They were very close last year, but I think with the downfall of the Warriors this year, the Nuggets kind of have this kind of or a fire underneath them, and to kind of pursue and go forward, because if it weren't for the Warriors, the Nuggets would have been in the Western Conference Finals. The Rockets are definitely, I think, another team that could be there as well, but we all know how James Harden and Russell Westbrook play when it comes to postseason time, so I won't be expecting them there. So I think I'm going to see a Lakers Nuggets. How about you?
I agree with the Lakers portion. I actually think it's going to be Lakers Clippers. Now, I'm hesitant on the Nuggets and the Jazz because I don't think they have a 3 or 4 who can come guard Kawhi and PG. Now, if you look at teams like the Lakers, they match up a little better because LeBron, while LeBron's not the best defender, LeBron can stick with Paul George or Kawhi a little bit better than Joe Ingles can.
I agree, and I think a reason why the Lakers will possibly be a clear front runner is not only because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but Dwight Howard. He's been playing some really good basketball lately, and
he looks trimmer. He looks motivated.
Yes, he does. He looks a lot better than he did when he was on the Rockets a few years ago. And kind of somebody surprising in the NBA right now, Austin, I totally forgot about this, but Carmelo Anthony on the Portland Trail Blazers.
That's right. That's some news. Melo is back in the NBA, back in the association, and they need help. The Blazers are 5-9, and they could really use Melo to. If Melo is back into the game shape, George, that is, and a guy who can come off the bench and give you some offense, they really need it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Melo, he's been working hard in the offseason, so I don't expect him to not perform at a high level, but I'm not also putting him up on a pedestal right now. I think Carmelo could be an average player in the NBA. This is long overdue. He definitely deserved to be in the NBA years ago. Not years ago, but definitely should have been in it last year. But I think Carmelo Anthony will have a big impact with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum as well, and that kind of big three up in Portland, which is a team that could possibly also make a run for the Western Conference Finals. Could be the Trailblazers as well.
They're waiting on Paul Gasol to come back from injury. They're waiting on Zach Collins to get healthy. Yusuf Nurkic might be out for the year, but Hassan Whiteside, their acquisition in the offseason from the Miami Heat, has been really, really rough this year. We saw Charles Barkley and Shaq criticize Whiteside on the TNT halftime report or post-game about his effort, and you have to think Carmelo's going to come in and he's going to want to prove to the NBA that he can still play basketball. So this is a guy that can come out and be a spark for this Portland team.
I like to see that for the Portland Trailblazers, but kind of going back into the East side of things, Celtics with an unfortunate loss to kind of end their 10-game win streak against the Kings like we talked about earlier. Marcus Smart missed a game-winning floater. My initial thoughts when I saw that happen was, use the backboard. That's why it's there. Don't be trying to use some fancy floater. If you attack the basket correctly instead of going straight on, maybe kind of swoop around to do a layup off the glass. It could have been a different ball game, but the floater has been a move now for the last few years. Curry definitely implemented that. especially bringing it to the high level that has been used at right now in the NBA, but it comes down to fundamentals. And that's a game that the Celtics should have won against this Kings team. Yes, Buddy Hield might have had 33, but still, this is an inexperienced Kings team that is slowly starting to look a little bit better. But if you're the Celtics, that should not have been. They should be on right now to a 12-game win streak rather than going back to square one. But I think the Celtics still are a surprising team, and also the Raptors are as well in the East. I think I had them a little bit lower, maybe at a 5 or 6 in my early predictions, but right now they're coming out strong. Pascal Siakam playing amazing basketball. Fred VanVleet also helping out. Kyle Lowry being himself. So this Raptors team is also a team to watch out for in the regular season.
This Raptors team is a team that is a little bit surprising because we expected Pascal Siakam to follow up with a decent year, but I didn't see him making the jump from very good player to elite, and he has done just that, continuing to dominate the NBA with 26 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, and 4 assists. And there's a lot of different teams in the East that can make a run, as many years have seen in the past, as the East is always kind of jumbled up. But the Celtics have been impressive because how good their defense is. They are allowing the second least points per game in the Eastern Conference, only 0.1 behind the Miami Heat. So really, the Celtics team is defensively stout. They're very good, and Marcus Smart has developed into a nice two-way player, and he's been probably the most improved Celtic if you take Gordon Hayward out of it since due to the injury. I mean, Smart's been able to score a little bit and hit more threes than he ever has.
And quick question, Austin, before we jump into our listeners' questions is, do you think Marcus Smart could win most improved player?
It's a little early to tell, and I think he never gets the recognition that he deserves, but I don't think he will, solely because his defense has been so good the last few years. He's really only improving his offense, and not by a large enough amount where they're going to recognize that.
I agree. Now, jumping into the listeners' questions, the first one is, will any defenses find an answer for Lamar Jackson?
Not this year. I mean, we saw RG3's first year in the league, and this is Lamar's really first year as a starter. Guys like this who are unique in their own way, being able to run the football, being able to throw the football, and the NFL has trouble adapting to these guys in their first real season in the league. And I don't think teams are going to be able to adjust to Lamar. The playoffs are completely different. You got to throw away the regular season, but regular season-wise, Nick Lamar is going to continue to go on a tear.
I agree, and especially in postseason time, we saw what he did last year against the Chargers. Couldn't really do much, but that's when he wasn't that effective in the run game. He tried to throw the ball a little bit more. He didn't have Mark Ingram and the defense that he has right now. And and you're right. Playing in January is a lot different than playing in September, especially in the AFC. If you're going to be, the road is pretty much usually through New England, as long as the Patriots don't lose a few games because the Ravens hold a tiebreaker against them. So the road right now is going through New England, and it's going to be a different type of football come January. Second question is, did the NFL get it right with the suspensions in last Thursday's game?
Yes. So if you didn't see the Thursday night brawl between the Steelers and Browns, there was a nice fight at the end of the game where Myles Garrett, the defensive end for the Cleveland Browns, brought the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mason Rudolph, to the turf rather hard, and Rudolph was just frustrated after being hit so hard that he was trying to rip Garrett's helmet off. Either way, the two then stood up, and Myles Garrett was being separated by one of the Steelers' offensive linemen, David DeCastro. Myles Garrett then reached around and took Mason Rudolph's helmet off of his head, then went back and whacked Mason Rudolph in the head with his own helmet very hard. So with all the actions that happened, a couple of Steelers players got pushing. Myles Garrett has been suspended indefinitely for the rest of the season and the playoffs. Mike Pouncey, the Steelers center, suspended 3 games. And Larry Ogunjobi, the defensive tackle for the Browns, gets a 1-game suspension for coming in and for no reason pushing Mason Rudolph to the ground way after it was over. So Mason Rudolph gets nothing out of this, but if you rewatch it, he had some questionable tactics while being tackled by Garrett, kind of pushing, pinching, kicking, and he doesn't get anything for it, even though he may have instigated. George, I think they got it right with Myles Garrett. He deserves the indefinite suspension. If this guy's suspended next year too, I don't blame the NFL. You cannot do that. You can't take somebody's helmet off
in the NFL for that
and hit them like that. That's a weapon that could have knocked him out. That's a heavy piece of equipment.
It is, and Myles Garrett is going to be appealing to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, appealing to the NFL is you're appealing to the person who suspended you.
Right.
Goodell hears the appeal. It's basically like you get a detention, then you go to the principal and ask, like if the principal gives you a detention, you just go back to that person and say, well, can I appeal this? I don't want the detention. Obviously, they're going to keep their decision pretty much. They're not going to really change.
The only thing I find interesting about this appeal is you're going to kind of hear what Myles Garrett has to say. Maybe
I can't wait.
Mason Rudolph said something, did something to kind of trigger this, but regardless of if Mason Rudolph did say something vulgar to Myles Garrett, there's just still no place to full-on assault Mason Rudolph like that. Maybe a punch or two would be necessary, but a helmet, no, that's too far.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what Garrett said, he did kind of kick. Rudolph did kind of kick Garrett in the midsection and did try and rip his helmet off. But still, why would you hit somebody in the head with a helmet that heavy? And I think Mike Pouncey's suspension's accurate. 3 games isn't terrible. He did come in pushing and shoving. I would have gave him a game. Larry Ogunjobi gets 1 game for coming in and for literally no reason after the play was over. After Myles Garrett had been separated, just came in and blasted Mason Rudolph to the turf. So I think that's fine to give him the suspension. I think Mason Rudolph should have got a game for starting it, though. I think Rudolph deserved to be suspended for 1 game.
Yeah, and there's all this hearsay about what kind of speculated it all, and I think with the upcoming days, we'll see what happens with the NFL and Myles Garrett's appeal. And last question, I don't know if this is the last question, also I don't know if you have any, but will the Patriots offense click by the playoffs? I believe it will, but it has to happen sooner than later if this team wants to make a run for the Super Bowl. And if the Patriots offense doesn't click, I don't think the Patriots will be going to the Super Bowl.
I think they'll figure it out. They have in the past, but like you said, George, if this offense doesn't figure it out, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, Deshaun Watson and the Texans, they're going to score 20 to 28 points against you in the playoffs, and your offense cannot sit at 17 points and expect to get a win.
And you can't rely on your defense all the time.
They're not going to carry you, that's for sure.
And yes, they did in the first 40 games of the season. You can go saying, yes, look who they played, but this defense can put up some points for you, but you can't solely rely on your defense to win you a game. You need all 3 aspects of football to win a game. You need your offense to put points up, your defense to stop, and your special teams to do their job. And the Patriots, they haven't really had a season struggling offensively like this. You might go back a few years, maybe to 2011, where the Patriots offense didn't do well and the defense was reliable, or maybe in 2008 when Brady went down, the offense wasn't really there, but still, you need all 3 aspects to win a football game.
You do, and the Patriots are going to have to figure out the ever-important offensive side of things because, like you said, George, a defense can only carry you so far, and you have to score if you want to win.
I agree with you, Austin, there, and that'll wrap things up here on Midnight Mania Sports. Austin DeCouta, and I'm George Hathaway on WGAO Power 88. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at MidMania Sports. That's MID Mania Sports. Thank you for listening, and good night.